Former President Donald Trump has introduced a bold new idea called the tariff dividend. This proposal would mean a direct payment of at least $2,000 to most American households, a move that has sparked a lot of conversation and debate across the country. The concept is simple. Take money collected from tariffs, taxes on imported goods, and give a portion of it back to the American people in the form of a check. Unlike the stimulus checks sent out during the COVID-19 pandemic, which were designed as emergency relief to help people get by during a crisis, the tariff dividend is being pitched as a way for Americans to share in the financial benefits that Trump claims would result from his tough trade policies. It's not about responding to a disaster, but about rewarding Americans for the government's approach to international trade. The plan would distribute these payments in 2026, just before the midterm elections, using revenue generated from tariffs on imported goods, especially those from countries like China. The idea is that by taxing imports, the government collects billions of dollars, and some of that money could be redirected straight to American families. According to Trump, the payments would be targeted specifically at middle and lower income Americans, intentionally leaving out the wealthiest households. The goal is to help those who are most affected by rising costs and economic uncertainty, while ensuring that the richest Americans do not benefit from the program. Supporters say the tariff dividend could serve as both a reward for Trump's tariff-heavy trade approach and a form of relief for families who are feeling squeezed by inflation and higher prices at the store. For many, an extra $2,000 could make a real difference in covering everyday expenses, from groceries to rent or utility bills. However, it's important to remember that as of now, this is just a proposal. No law has been passed, and no checks are being sent out. The idea is still in its early stages, and there are many details that would need to be worked out before it could become reality. For the plan to actually happen, it would need to pass both the House of Representatives and the Senate, and then be signed into law by the President. This process can be long and complicated, with plenty of opportunities for debate, amendments, and even rejection. Still, the idea has captured the imagination of many Americans, who are already thinking about how an extra $2,000 could help them pay down debt, save for the future, or simply make life a little easier in tough economic times. But turning a popular idea into a fully funded government program is never easy. The tariff dividend faces major political, economic, and legal hurdles, including questions about its impact on trade, the economy, and whether it would really benefit the people it's meant to help. To understand the so-called tariff dividend, it's important to first break down what a tariff actually is, and how it works in practice. A tariff is essentially a tax that the government places on goods brought into the country from abroad, on imports. For example, if there's a 25% tariff on cars imported from China, the companies bringing those cars into the US have to pay an extra fee to the government. This makes those vehicles more expensive for American buyers, since the added cost is usually included in the final price. Under Trump's plan, the money collected from these tariffs, potentially billions of dollars, would be used to fund $2,000 checks for American households, a direct payment meant to offset rising costs. Supporters of the plan argue that tariffs are a powerful tool, bringing in huge sums to the U.S. Treasury. They believe this revenue should be returned to the American people, especially during times of economic stress. But here's the catch. While the government collects the tariff from importers, those companies often pass the extra cost along to consumers. That means everyday Americans end up paying more for imported goods, from electronics to groceries. So, when tariffs are placed on products like furniture, electronics, or clothing, shoppers usually see higher prices at the store, making it harder for families to stretch their budgets. Proponents of tariffs often claim that these taxes are paid by foreign companies or governments, suggesting it's a way to make other countries pay. But critics argue that in reality, tariffs act as a hidden tax on American families, quietly raising the cost of living. The real debate comes down to this: is the so-called dividend a genuine benefit for Americans, or is it simply giving people back money they've already lost to higher prices at the checkout counter? Critics warn that, after accounting for the higher prices caused by tariffs, the net benefit for most households could be very small, or even negative, leaving families no better off, or possibly worse. This ongoing controversy, over who really pays and who truly benefits, remains at the heart of the tariff dividend debate, fueling passionate arguments in Congress, on the news, and around kitchen tables across America. Who would actually get the $2,000 check? It's a question on the minds of millions of Americans, especially as economic uncertainty continues to affect households across the country. Trump says the payments would go to middle and lower income Americans, not the wealthy. The goal is to provide meaningful relief to those who are most likely to spend the money quickly, helping both families and the broader economy. No official income cutoffs have been announced, but past programs offer clues about how eligibility might be determined this time around. For example, COVID-19 stimulus checks phased out for individuals earning over $75,000 and for couples at $150,000. These thresholds were designed to focus aid on those who need it most, while gradually reducing payments for higher earners. The middle class is typically defined as households earning between $55,000 and $167,000, but this varies by state and family size. In high-cost areas, what counts as middle class can be much higher than the national average. The IRS would likely use recent tax returns to determine eligibility, as it did for previous stimulus payments. This means your 2022 or 2023 tax filings could decide whether you qualify and how much you receive. Most people would get their money automatically, but non-filers, like some seniors, people with disabilities, or those with very low incomes, might need a separate process to claim their checks, just as they did during earlier relief efforts. Excluding high earners helps control costs and targets relief to those who need it most. It's a way to make sure limited government resources go where they'll have the biggest impact. But setting the income cap is always contentious, too low, and some struggling families miss out. Too high, and the program's cost skyrockets. Lawmakers must balance fairness, need, and fiscal responsibility. The final eligibility rules would be a major point of debate if the plan moves forward, with both political and economic factors shaping who ultimately gets a check and who doesn't. The biggest question: is there enough money to pay for the tariff dividend? Analysts estimate sending $2,000 checks to eligible Americans could cost nearly $300 billion. But in 2025, the government collected only $195 billion from all tariffs, far short of what's needed. This leaves a funding gap of over $100 billion, raising doubts about the plan's viability. Critics, including some Republicans, argue that any extra revenue should go toward reducing the national debt, not new spending. There's also a contradiction. Trump has said tariff money should pay down debt, but it can't do both: send checks and reduce deficits. The entire tariff dividend plan faces a major legal challenge at the Supreme Court. The case questions whether the president overstepped by imposing sweeping tariffs, powers the Constitution reserves for Congress. If the court rules against the administration, the tariffs could be struck down, and the funding for the dividend would disappear. Such a ruling could force the government to refund billions to importers, erasing the pool of money for checks. The decision will shape not just trade policy, but the balance of power between the presidency and Congress. Until the court rules, the legal foundation for the tariff dividend remains shaky. The $2,000 tariff dividend has ignited fierce debate. Supporters, including Trump, say it rewards American families and workers, protects U.S. industries, and brings jobs back home. They argue tariffs are paid by foreign countries, so the dividend is a fair way to share the gains. Critics, economists, business groups, and some politicians counter that tariffs are really a tax on Americans, raising prices on everyday goods. Studies show most tariff costs are passed on to consumers, so the dividend may simply return money people already lost to higher prices. Some warn it could even worsen inflation by injecting more cash into the economy. Many see the proposal as a political move, not genuine economic relief. The tariff dividend isn't the only relief idea on the table. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has hinted at a broader package, including targeted tax cuts. Proposals include making tips tax-free, eliminating taxes on overtime pay, and removing taxes on Social Security income for seniors. These alternatives could supplement or replace the direct check, appealing to fiscal conservatives who prefer tax cuts over new spending. However, tax cuts also reduce government revenue and could add to the deficit, if not offset, elsewhere. Unlike pandemic stimulus checks, these are new ideas. No fourth stimulus is planned. The future of these proposals remains uncertain, pending political debate and legislative action. For the $2,000 tariff dividend to become reality, several hurdles remain. First, the Supreme Court must rule on the legality of the tariffs. If struck down, the plan is dead. If tariffs survive, Congress must pass new legislation, a tough challenge in a divided political climate. Lawmakers would need to set income limits, finalize payment amounts, and design the distribution process. The level of support within the Republican Party will be crucial. Watch for announcements from the White House and Congress about any formal bill. The legislative process will reveal the plan's real chances. Until these legal and political obstacles are cleared, the tariff dividend is just an idea, not a guaranteed check. The public should stay tuned for updates as the debate unfolds.